Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am particularly excited about doing this video. If I'm being honest, this is the most excited I've been about creating YouTube videos for some time. In the previous video, I went a bit more information, a bit more science-based. You guys really enjoyed it. I really love doing it. It makes me feel fulfilled. It makes me feel like I'm helping you guys. It reminds me of things that I've forgotten, and it teaches me things that I may have not known before. And that in turn makes me a better coach and hopefully makes better videos for you too. So first off, thank you to everyone who commented. Because of you, that's the reason I'm doing another one of these videos, and if you guys enjoy it, do please let me know because that will spur me to do more. In the last video, we talked about rest and recovery, why that's critical to performance and to progression. At the end of the video, you guys said, would I please do a video on my sciatic nerve issues and why I'm getting pain, how I'm getting around it. And to be honest, it seems to have risen because of my inability and my lack of knowledge on how to isolate, lock, and really brace my core before my major lifts. And all this will become very clear from this video. And I actually think, I'd hazard a guess to say at least 90% of the people watching this video either don't know how to, aren't doing it properly, or can't brace their core properly before the big lifts. If that's you, don't worry, I was one of them, and I consider myself to know more than the average person when it comes to nutrition and training. Now, we will be talking about the sciatic nerve in this video, but the first thing that I want to make very clear is I am not a physio, chiropractor, or any of the above, so this video is not made to prescribe or treat people. This is my personal information and my personal experience. If you are having any sciatic nerve issues, your first point of call is to see a specialist. So with that being said, let's get into it. At the bottom of your brain is your spinal cord. It's basically a thick bundle or tube of nerves. It runs from your brain down through your spine, through the spinal canal, and connects your extremities to your brain, so your arms and your legs. In this thick kind of bundle of nerves is your sciatic nerve, and the sciatic nerve exits between the vertebrae through little holes. Now this is very important because it goes through the vertebrae in these small holes. It's potentially a site of irritation. For example, if you were to have a slipped disc, that could potentially push on that sciatic nerve and give you sciatica. Now the sciatic nerve is the longest nerve in your body. It runs from the lower back down to the foot basically, and you can get that sciatic nerve sensation, irritation or pain really anywhere in that region. For some people it reaches all the way down to the foot. I get mine more behind my knee area, just above where the kind of sciatic nerve crosses over a bundle of muscles. But as you can see, it spreads out in like a web, which means it can be irritated in many places, unfortunately. Now, working with the physio that I'm working with, Sam, the current train of thought is that my inability to be able to lock on my core is putting my back in a compromised position when squatting, and that is irritating potentially the facet joints of my back and ultimately giving me sciatic pain. Now I'm going to reference 3 videos, that's 3, in the description of this video that I think you should watch, which do a fantastic job of explaining why it's very important to lock on our core, and I'm going to reference on some of them as well. So I'm going to do a shout out to this video from Alex Bromley, which talks about basically locking on your core for squat and for powerlifting. And one analogy he uses is like a soda can or a can. He said if you think of your rib cage and your pelvis as a can, you want to keep the top of the can in line with the bottom of the can. If your rib cage flares up or your hips tip under, the can's going to get dented because we're not stacked on top of each other. So when we're going into our squats and our deadlifts, we want to keep that can maintained. We want to keep a good cylinder of pressure and the back and the core in line. This is something that I certainly wasn't doing, as you will see from this squat video here. Now you can see from this video that I initiate the squat with my hips and I create an excessive lumbar curve, which is putting pressure on my lower back, and you can see it's quite an aggressive. There's even kind of a rebound and a bounce while I'm doing that. So one thing that I've been working with Sam is learning how to engage my core properly. Previously, this was my train of thought when I would be squatting. Take a deep breath into your belly, brace your abs, push it against the belt, squat. And that's just not cutting it. Cool, I'm breathing into my belly, that's good. But basically all I'm doing is I'm pushing the air out. We need to create 360 degree of pressure in our core. We want to be feeling our obliques, and we want to be feeling, if I put my hands by my side, I want to be feeling my core expand laterally and bracing my back as well. Again, Alexander Bromley does a brilliant job of doing this in his video. He talks about his setup for bracing his core. It's squeezing the glutes, very important, because that takes me out of that lordotic position in my back and it makes my hips neutral under my rib cage, aka keeping the can in line, or keeping the top and the bottom of the can in line. We're then bracing the quads, bringing the rib cage down, as what often happens is when people take a big deep breath in, they lift up the rib cage. What's that done? That's put my upper back extended and it's already taken my can out of alignment. So we need to bring the rib cage down, brace the abs, squeeze the bum, squeeze the quads to create that nice upright line, cylinder or can. Then we can take a deep breath into the belly against braced abs. What that does is when there's a braced abs there, or there's a belt there, for example, it basically doesn't almost give the belly the ability to expand that much, and it's going to force that kind of pressure to expand around and give us a 360-degree brace. Now, if you're an old school Elliot Hulse fan and you remember his videos from back in the day, now breathing into your balls, basically breathing down into your belly, is not an easy thing to do at the best of times. One basically routine or drill that I was given by Sam, again there's a link to the video in the description from this, is, and actually I'll put a link to Sam in the description as well, it'd be rude not to, it teaches you how to start to breathe into your lower belly and how to get that 360-degree brace. And there's a really cool thing you can do with your hands over your hips to feel if you can feel your hands expanding laterally as well as out the front and out the back. That shows that you are getting a 360-degree brace or core brace before you squat. Now, why is a strong brace and core so damn important when it comes to squatting? Well, the definition of core to me is the ability to keep your core or your trunk of your body stable while your arms and legs work off that. So a sprinter needs an incredibly strong core. They need to keep their core nice and upright, or whatever position they use to run, while generating power through the legs. If a boxer or a shot putter has a weak core, he throws a shot put, the core gives way. Another good analogy, if you're in a swimming pool and you think of a tumble turn, if you're swimming and you go to kick off the wall, you get that acceleration the opposite way. If you do a tumble turn, you kick off a wall that's made of jelly, you don't get the same force. And I think that's a good analogy for a lot of people to understand why the core is so important. If we also take into account Sherrington's law of irradiation, this becomes even more clear. It basically states that a muscle working hard will make the muscles neighboring it recruit and work hard as well. So the harder you can brace your core, the harder the muscles around it are gonna work, especially the muscles that are joint in that movement, allowing you to create more force. Now, when it comes to developing force, we need to talk about motor units. Motor units are basically a motor neuron and the muscle fibers that it innervates. So you get a signal, goes through a motor neuron, and that basically tells muscle fibers to contract and to work. Looking at an eyeball, for example, one motor neuron might control only a few amount of fibers because it's very delicate, it doesn't need to be very powerful. One motor neuron in the quadricep, in the quad for example, may well innervate many more muscle fibers. We have a hierarchy of the muscle fibers that we use. So when the brain sends a signal to the motor neuron to innervate its muscle fibers and that motor unit to contract, it will only innervate as many muscle fibers as it needs to do a selective job. So what that might mean is you're trying to get a deadlift off the floor. To start with, it will innervate the slower twitch muscle fibers. If they're not man enough for the job, it will go up for the or woman enough for the job. It will go up through the hierarchy until it can use its faster type 2 muscle fibers, which are explosive and more anaerobic, to hopefully lift that weight. So think, when you're bracing your core, we kind of almost want to be immediate, and we want to be concentrating, we want to be attentive to it, and we want to lock it on hard. I'm trying to find the word to really describe that. Aggressive isn't quite the word that I'm looking for, but we want to be forceful with it. And you'll know what I mean, because when you go to squat with a bar that's got 90% of your maximum load in it, even 80%, you don't half-heartedly attempt it. You go in there, you address that bar with the respect and the aggression that it deserves, and you lock everything on tight. Now, one thing I want to touch on here, I guess it kind of comes into the rehab for myself, and that's kind of about neuroplasticity and motor patterns. See, our body knows motor patterns. For example, someone who throws a baseball for a living may hijack the throwing the baseball movement when it comes to throwing other objects. We use what is ingrained, is what I'm trying to say. So at the moment, still at the moment, I have ingrained a poor squatting technique. So I have to learn to do this bracing of the core and squat at sub-maximal lows. This is very important, and constantly squat as close to perfect as I can get with this correct technique. Because my body needs time to recognize, store, and make this proper functional way of squatting my way of squatting. So one thing I do not want to be doing is going to failure, because if I go to failure, my technique will break down, and that is going to inhibit my body's ability to go, John, you're doing the right thing. This is how I should squat. I'm pain-free here. I feel strong. Let's keep doing it. So for the time being, my squat percentage is very, very greatly decreased. Depending on you and what position you can hold your core in. When we did the test with my physio, my back squat is 151 kilos. I'd like it to be 180. I'm not gonna lie, that is my goal. But it was at 60 kilos that I lost my tension. What we did is we put a belt around my core, but we put it on loose. So when I fully breathed out and braced my core, I could feel a bit of tension. Not enough to create tension and stop my abs from doing the work, but enough to give me feedback. And what I did is, as I was squatting, I could use that belt as feedback to feel if I was getting hollows. Was my hips twisting and I was getting a hollow in my lower back? And it just gave me something to feedback off. Now, I wouldn't recommend people squatting all the time, especially on low weights with a belt, but this isn't used for that purpose. It's used for the purpose of giving me feedback. So we talked about the sciatic nerve, we talked about correctly bracing your core, which I've added videos down below which go a little more in depth for that, including giving you drills to do to learn how to basically breathe to your balls, quoting Elliot Hulse there back in the day. We talked about Sherrington's law of irradiation. So a strongly contracted muscle will allow the other muscles around it to be stronger and to control more force. We talked about motor units, motor neurons, and we also at the end there talked about movement patterns, all which are very important when it comes to perfecting your squat, staying injury free, and ultimately being as strong as you possibly can. Now, I hope all that made sense. If you have any questions or if you think there's anything that I missed, please do leave it in the comments, and I will address that, or I'll make people aware of it in the next video. If there's anything that you feel that I should have put in there, please do let me know. If you enjoyed this video, I really appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. Hell, go and hit that notification bell and let me know what else you would like to see, because I do really enjoy doing these videos and I hope you guys enjoy it too. Thanks, guys.